Hello, everybody. Welcome back. This week, I have a podcast called Keeping It Short, Simple, and Sweet. And we are also going to keep it short, simple, and sweet, but it will have useful information in there for you, for people training, exercising, working with their horses. A little bit of some theory behind the ideology of keeping it short, simple, and sweet, and some examples of how I believe this really works and has worked for my horses and my clients. A little housekeeping before we get started. I have awesome guests coming up, so I'm super excited about that with some really interesting topics that I think a lot of listeners would find helpful and interesting. And we are in the midst of summer camp. So if you are considering a trick riding week-long summer camp where the horses and equipment are provided, do not hesitate, as this will be my last summer in Minnesota. I'm not saying I'm stopping trick riding or teaching trick riding. I will be continuing that in the Chicagoland area, but this will be our fourth full-time, our fifth summer, and our final summer here in Minnesota, sadly. And one of the awesome things about the summer in Minnesota is we have the wonderful circus camp. So going forward, wherever I do camps, there won't be a flying trapeze right across the driveway, and there won't be a beautiful lake to take the horses swimming. So if you are thinking about camp, amazing. Next week I have a full adult camp, and I have more adults this year than kids. It's incredible. So adults, if you want to fulfill your summer childhood dreams, come to trick riding camp. It is awesome. It is fun. But I also have camps still with openings in July. Let me get those dates for you right now. So the kid and teen stunt camp is open and available and will be running from July 8th through 12th. And then I have one more adult camp from July 22nd to 26th. And then we have one final camp before I move in August. That is not horses only, it is horses and circus. The downside is you won't be with me all day, but you'll be with me at least once a day. And then you will rotate to circus stuff like flying trapeze, aerial arts. They have a lot of cool stuff over there. And that is August 12th through 16th. A fun thing about that camp is that adults and children can sign up together. So that's a great one if you want to do it with your kid. Other than that, we have those July ones are the final stunt camps. We are Roman riding. We are doing Rosenbach riding. We are Cossack riding. We are learning mounted games, sword fighting. We're putting acts together. We're doing a show. One of my biggest compliments has been the horse usage. So keeping it short and sweet. I have a working rotation. I've had adults tell me that they are nervous about camp because they're worried, and rightfully so. This means that they are well-intended and have a good heart. They're worried about the horse usage. Well, I stick to the research and my newfound morals on horse usage. So they are not in the arena more than usually a half hour at a time. And then we have a working rotation. So it's a pretty light week for the horses, but watch out. You might walk away a little sore, but well, well worth it. And it's a good pace that you won't be worn out as the week goes on. So check that out at flyingcolorstrapeze.com. It is a day camp. So if you are coming out of town, you will have to find accommodations. But if you are out of state and you're thinking, oh, that's way too far, well, I have people from all over the country. I think this year I even am getting a kid from Alaska. I'm super excited to show her a really great time. So don't hold back. I will be offering services where I move, but last one in Minnesota. If you've been waiting, don't wait any longer. I can't wait to see you guys there. All right, moving forward. I'm calling this podcast keeping it short, simple, and sweet. I will try to find the research behind what I am proposing, but I do know that we have mentioned this in the past. So I'm not finding new topics. I'm not finding new research. I'm bringing up old ones and summarizing it into this theory of keeping things short, simple, and sweet. When people ask me how often should we train, work on horses, I say 4 times a week, 20 minutes. And it's optimal. You will have optimal results and you will have some free time. uh, just a little story here is that I grew up in the hunter jumper industry, not by particular choice, but because that was the closest lesson stable to our house and we didn't know any better. Little do you know, when you're interested in horses and you have a city suburban family and you don't come from horses, you have no idea what you're getting into. You're just like, oh my gosh, I want to ride horses. Where's the closest lesson stable? At least that's how it was for me. So it just happened to be an English riding stable. I didn't choose English or Western. That's just what was there. I'm grateful for my background and I wouldn't change a thing other than looking back. There are some ethical things, and I did witness neglect and abuse that I wish I hadn't, for the horse's sake, of course, and mine, because it was a weird programming that I had to deprogram as I started to look through a different lens and have some discernment about what I saw happening in the industry around me. But the point I'm getting at is that a lot of girls in the stable started to lease horses, own horses, and had this idea that they really had to really ride their horses an hour, 2 hours. And then you have people purchasing lessons and they believe that their quality depends on how long they are on the horse's back. At least that's the frame of mind I used to run into. Now I actually am getting questions like, how long is the lesson? My lessons are an hour. How long are they on the horse? 20 minutes, out with the horse for 30. And they go, oh, that's great. I just had a woman on Friday talk about how at the riding stable that her daughter rides at, she took a nasty fall, broke a joint, broke some bones, and they noticed that that horse was getting used in hour-long lessons back to back. And that being part of the blame of what had happened, and not thinking, oh, got to get my money's worth. That kid needs to be on for a whole hour. They were worried about the horse, as one should be if you like horses and you're trying to get involved in equestrian sports. So far, I've had 0 complaints about the length of time that my students are actually on the horse, because we work for the advantage of making our time worthwhile, and my students will get farther and accomplish more when we spend 20 minutes working on the barrel, working through tricks where I'm saving my horse's patience, I'm saving their back, and I can really get nitty gritty and nitpicky until they have it correct. And it's muscle memory, and it's not practice till you get it right. It's practice till you don't get it wrong. And then we get the horse, we groom them, we learn how to warm them up and, have groundwork. So we learn about reading the horse. And then we're 20 minutes on the back applying everything we just learned. And we get so much done in that little bit of time because it's quality, not quantity. And once everything is put together and it feels good, you want more. So you want to come back and you feel accomplished. You don't feel exhausted, fatigued, defeated. And this is what the horse may feel when we are trained to think that we must ride for a long period of time. Now, I do want to state that I'm not here to tell you what to do, but you have come to me because there is something about my advocacy and the research I've done and my horses and my program and the results I have, that you are interested in how I have come to the conclusion of how I do things. And I want you to know that I change. I have evolved. I did grow up in that boarding stable where I thought you had to ride for an hour, exhaust them, wear them out. My experience, my education has led me down a different path and I have changed and I do not ride that way anymore and I do not train that way. And when people ask me what I think the correct thing to do is, I have a different answer from what I was originally taught. So here's one reason why 20 minutes or less is optimum. The horse's mental capacity. Too many people, in my opinion, in my experience, feel that there is this long history, soul connection with their horse, and it has caused a lot of assuming that the horse can handle more than they can, assuming that the horse can take on our baggage, our problems, our emotion, because we're together on this soul journey. And sure, we have a long history with horses, but don't forget that that long history with horses came because we rode them into battle. We trained horses, and we, meaning humans, trained horses to do a beautiful lavad. Do you know why? So that if someone on the ground comes up to stab you with a sword, the horse rears and they get the horse in the stomach instead of the rider. So it's a whole idea of just because we can doesn't mean that we should. Nowadays, we do not have to do that. So if you love your horse, you wouldn't want to train that for that purpose, at least. So it's like, if everybody jumped off a bridge, would you? So everybody used to train their horses and ride their horses into battle. But if you truly have a soul connection with the horse, you would want what's optimum for them. So a lot of anthropomorphic training, a lot of soul connected training, a lot of religious analogies in training tend to have put too much on the horse, when in reality, the horse's brain is the size of a walnut. And I did a recent Q&A session on my Patreon about, do horses like being ridden? And my answer was yes and no. No, because if you didn't have a halter, a lead rope, a bridle, a saddle, and you didn't go lead that horse, put him on the cross ties, they wouldn't just voluntarily ask for a saddle to go on. They wouldn't voluntarily ask to be ridden. Most likely they would just kind of hang out with you, stand with you. You know, they're not begging for it like a dog brings you his leash. But at the same time, because of the horse's mental capabilities, they really don't know any better. And so they're super forgiving and they're super trusting. So I like to remind my students that the horse's brain is the size of a walnut. We have to take that into consideration. Why is traditional horse training so much more difficult than the work of psychology and classical and operant conditioning than training any other animal? Because we put too much of the emphasis of why we ride onto the horse. Oh, back in the old Westerns, we had to cross the Oregon Trail and do this for our people. Well, that's your problem. That's not on the horse, but we put that deep, rich, meaningful history onto the horse, meaning that the horse must carry this with us. And I don't believe that's the case. But also, they have, I talked about this in one of my recent Patreon articles where we go through scientific journal articles every other week, that they have great long-term memory and poor short-term memory. So if you're working extra hard and you're trying to accomplish this thing, it's probably not going to stick. But what is going to stick is the feeling of exhaustion, fatigue, and too much. In a past podcast that I did with Kelsey, we talked about leaving them wanting more. So I do find it being the greatest results and feeling and time management when you save the best one for next time. So let's say you're doing a Spanish walk and you're like, okay, I'm going to ask. Boom, boom, boom. He's throwing out his legs. Ooh, that was fun. Let's do it again. I'm going to ask one more time. Now this one's higher. It's bigger. You're not having to ask as much. You're barely signaling. That's such an amazing feeling. You want to do it one more time. That's when you stop. That's when you save the next one for next time. Your horse is going to, that's ending on a good note. Your horse is going to feel awesome and it's fresh and you're only asking once. And you're going to feel like, great. It took me 2 times to ask and we had this beautiful performance. Why do we need to do more? Imagine being in class and someone said, okay, recite the ABCs. Okay, you did it the first time. You got it right, but it wasn't completely on rhythm with the tune. You did it one more time and you got it. Don't you want to be done? No, imagine that teacher making you do it again and again and again for the sole purpose that they just like to hear it. You're going to hate it. You're going to hate those ABCs and you're never going to want to have to do it again. This is the idea that we're working with when we have the perspective of working with our horse from the horse, because in a different book, gosh, I think it's Beyond the Dream Horse, I will cite it. This is a trainer that has the same training and has worked under Alexander Nevzorov, who's very extreme, but very about his ideologies of riding horses that he doesn't even ride anymore because he thinks it's unethical. But YouTube him because the stuff that he can do with his horses is phenomenal and the horses love it. So this man, Michael, wrote this book, and there's one, and I read it over 10 years ago, but there's one part that really stuck with me. And he said that your horse has the mental capabilities of a 3-year-old child that does not speak English, or let's say the same language that you do. So imagine working with a child that doesn't speak your language. If you picture that, you will have more of a perspective of keeping it short, keeping it sweet, keeping it fresh, keeping it fun, and backing off of the pressure and backing off of using physical pressure and pushing and, getting really demanding of children doesn't really work that well. But when you play with them and you're safe and you're trustworthy and you're fun, that kid is like, what are we going to do next? So that's part of it. Another part that I've mentioned, and I'll just touch on briefly, is their back. So in an earlier podcast, I talked about the research that was done with saddle pads, I want to say back in the mid-90s. And they tested saddle pads and they took thermal imaging of the horse's back. And after 20 minutes, their back goes numb, because a wild thought is that maybe horses weren't designed to carry riders. This goes back to just because we can doesn't mean that we should. What animal is physically designed by nature, meant to carry another rider or another creature for long periods of time? Cross your legs at the movie theater. Keep them in that position for over 20 minutes. What happens? You start to lose blood flow. It gets tingly. You get a red mark. You're so uncomfortable. You got to change positions and recross your legs. So if they take thermal imaging of the back after 20 minutes, max half hour, and the blood flow's gone, your horse is going to feel that tingling, cut off circulation feeling. And here we are, people getting ready to ride in the Pony Express for thousands of miles, almost 200 miles a day. Again, the more I see these things, my biggest challenge is to still love people, still connect to people, because it's just information that they don't know. They're not out here riding for hours at a time. And I'm not just talking about these people. I'm talking about anyone riding horses. No one's out riding for hours at a time purposely thinking they're gonna intentionally harm their horse. Horses allow us to do these things. They don't know any better. They're babies. But now when you have the information and you do the research, here's where you can marinate on it, and then you can make appropriate changes. And I know a lot of people who've changed their mind. They're like, I used to ride for hours, now it's like 20 minutes. I'm not telling you what to do. You do you, because I don't want to fight with more fighting. Because if I announce information, there will always be pushback, but I will present the information. Go ahead, check it out, read it for yourself. Everything will evolve and progress. Everything, the collective usually takes longer to catch up than the individual. But when the individual evolves and progresses and affects the communities around them, that's what helps the collective also move forward. This is the advancement I think we are making, and hopefully the impact I'm making with horsemanship. I still ride my horses. I'm not telling you not to ride your horses. There are extreme people who say, don't ride your horse. I feel that way sometimes, but we're still stuck in 2024. The economy is awful. I wouldn't have my 4 horses if they couldn't help me feed them and keep up with their vet bills. So what I do is the best that I can. I take the information and the research and I apply it, and then I adjust my methodology, and then I make it work for us. If I didn't ride my horses, I probably wouldn't be able to afford to keep them, and they'd be bored. I got some chunky, easy keepers. They still need to exercise. And the thing is if you keep it short and sweet and simple, and you're using positive reinforcement, and you're treating your horse like a 3-year-old child that you want to have fun with, they do enjoy it. They will enjoy it, because if they just stand in a dry lot all the time, they will get bored. So we adjust, we take in information, we do the best we can. And part of that, I believe, is to keep things short, simple, and sweet. Whew. What else can we say about that? Their physical capabilities, their mental capabilities, and then emotional too. Pat Pirelli said, you should walk away from working with your horse saying, was that as good for you as it was for me? There's an old ideology of, what's the term I'm looking for? Working until it ends on a good note. And I good note is great, but not working until, so not pushing through. When he presented horse analogies, and we were talking about horses with thresholds. If a horse is fearful in its right brain, I tell my students, drop the agenda, drop the training for the day. Your focus now is to get them from right brain to left brain, using that hierarchy of needs, getting them feeling safe and comfortable before you can go to food and play, where the learning happens. So you might have to totally drop the training agenda, just worry about getting them from right brain to left brain. And if that takes 20 minutes, that's it, you're done. That's all you're going to do today. But at least you accomplished the horse not feeling safe to feeling safe under your guidance, and that's going to strengthen your relationship. And I don't always agree with natural horsemanship with different clinicians for various purposes, but I do believe that the relationship needs to come first. Before the ribbons, before the this, before the that, before the results. There's multiple ways to get to 10, 6 plus 4, 8 plus 2, 5 plus 5, but it's not about 10. It's about how you got there, right? If you have a math question and it's like, what's the answer? 10. And then it says, show your math, how you got there. If you didn't get there correctly, the answer's wrong. You have to show the math properly. The other saying, it's not about what you do, it's how you do it. And nowadays, people are getting really good at reading horses. You can see it in the horse's eyes. If they're a little, I hate to say the term dead inside, but we called that learned hopelessness. So there's another study where they took animals and they had a little fence in the room. So be it dogs, rats, I think these are what they used. Unfortunately, those are the animals that get a lot of experimentation done. And it was a psychology experiment. So 2 floors, one was electric. Every time they would jump over, he would get shocked. So if he jumped one side, he'd go to the other. But if both sides were electric, jump back, forth, it eventually would give up and sit there and be sad because he couldn't win. And that's called learned hopelessness. We put horses in stalls in confinement when they're actually designed to travel 20 miles a day on the range. And we have a lot of people who don't believe in positive reinforcement. And we get horses that will perform for us because they have no other choice. And you can just see it in their eyes that they are prisoners, and it's all just learned hopelessness. People are, they can do amazing things with these horses, but how did they get there in an unethical way that's not putting the welfare of the horses first, their physical, mental, emotional well-being? And finally, using discernment and open eyes, people are like rejecting that. And I think it's great. It's a start. So, it's not about what you do, it's how you do it. And with that, I will say that trying to end things on a good note and pushing through and going past exhaustion and pushing horses through, that's where I was, that's the track I was on. Pushing horses past that threshold will usually put you back, not send you forward. So also knowing, okay, we're past our 20-minute mark. The horse doesn't feel comfortable. The horse doesn't feel safe. Instead of proving my point and thinking that I have to be the dominant one and I have to show him who's boss, who are you showing who's boss? This is an animal that eats plants and is afraid of everything like a big mouse. Who are you showing that you're boss to? It's a baby. Get the ego out of there, because the whole show them who's boss, push until you end on a good note, that's an ego-driven ideology. And I tell my students, if you really want to be in a soulful horsemanship, you meditate, you drop the ego, you put the horse first. And I believe if you do those things, if that's what you're looking for, you will be closer to God. If you can walk away feeling like you did things from the goodness of your heart and you didn't push an innocent animal into a situation that you knew made them uncomfortable, but you had just this, bottom chakral sensation of needing to dominate something. There are even classical dressage trainers and one of which has trained my friend, who is very good with her horses. And so though some might not like his training, he does say, if he takes a horse out and that horse is right-brained, not left-brained, and they're not going to get anything accomplished that day, he puts the horse back and he says, not today. So it's being able to have that capability and dropping the ego that you must accomplish things right now. Have discernment. A lot of things are for show. There are a lot of clinicians out there, even the ones that call them natural horsemanship, that say to put the relationship first, that have sold out an arena. And so if you come with a horse, you got to get on a trailer, they'll do it. And they'll push a horse past its threshold. And then you take that horse home and you're going to have a harder time. And that's exactly what a friend of mine had. And she came to me saying, hey, I have this little Mustang. I took it to a clinic and they pushed him too far. And now I'm struggling even more. That arena saw that horse get on the trailer and they thought there was magic, but really they just saw, 7 + 3. They didn't see 5 + 5. And so she said, can you help me? And I said, I can. I don't really want to fight this horse, but I'll tell you what to do, because we're not going to get it done in an hour. We are not going to get it done in an hour. And that is me setting my ego aside, saying that the right thing to do is to take 20 minutes, 4 days a week, just building his confidence, making him feel comfortable again. And all I'm using to come to that conclusion is applied learning theory and positive counter conditioning. So if he has 5 bad trailer experiences, we need 6 good ones. Just let him be next to it without stress, without pressure, without demanding anything. Feed him inside the trailer. Feed him inside the trailer again. Feed him inside the trailer again. Pretty soon that trailer is going to be the coolest place ever because awesome treats and grain comes from there, and not pressure and not force. The horse is a 3-year-old child that doesn't speak the same language as you. That's all you got to think. And then it's much more simple than a lot of the horse world has made it to be. As soon as people take the time now to take less time later, that's when you get horses like mine, who I take 4 horses at once. I open the trailer and I go clip, and he jumps in. And then I go clip, unclip their halter, boom, the next horse jumps in. Clip, they jump in. When I've left clinics and my clients are like, you gotta do just a seminar on trailer loading. And the thing is that I've made that trailer comfortable and safe. And it's even been an awesome source of food. Usually if I'm going cross country, there's some alfalfa in there waiting for them because of the calcium's going to be like Tums, and then it tastes good. And sometimes you could put, you could check out my podcast about horse hauling tips. Sometimes there's like electrolytes that taste good you could put in the water. That all helps make a positive association about the feeling of being in the trailer when there's like some good stuff in there. So yeah, to sum it all up, keep it short, 20 minutes or less. Keep it simple. There's also been so much research, and you can check out the ISES, International Society of Equitation Studies, that I also did a podcast going through their principles of horse training, that they can only learn one thing at a time. So if you're saying speed up and get over, it's speed up, get over. It's one thing and then the other. One of my biggest things that I have to watch out for when I'm working with new people and they're trying to learn groundwork and training their horse is to let the horse stop and process. Brain the size of a walnut, no prefrontal cortex, 3-year-old that doesn't speak the same language as you. So my kids at camp, they'll ask my horse, smile, 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 smile. The horse smiles, they get a treat. Before they can even chew the treat, they're smile, smile, smile. I'm like, whoa, slow down. And that's where if you want to get soulful and add some meditation in there, the first thing you should do is practice breathing. So after you do something and accomplish something, pause, take a breath, and give them time to process. If you do something twice and you take it slow and you have clarity and you give the horse time to process, you will accomplish so much more than 20 minutes, an hour, 2 hours of pushing, 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 asking, 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 asking with no time in between. So keep it short, keep it simple, keep it sweet. Bring some treats, bring some excitement. I used to think about this when I was a kid all the time. I'm like, can you imagine just like running around in circles? And I use circles because I'm in the circus ring most of the time. But I have horses with an amazing whoa button, and I think it's very important. I got kids on them. Sometimes there's so much going on and they're very desensitized to their mouth and their leg because of trick riding horses. But if I say, whoa, they stop. Do you know why? Because they hit a jackpot reward when it's a whoa. They're just associating awesome amounts of treats and good treats with this command, which is whoa. And if you keep the whoa really sweet, you're going to have this sweet whoa button. It's really quite simple. Another example of this was recently a Liberty lesson. I think for Liberty, your biggest thing is your recall, the here. How easy is it for most people to shoo their horse away from them versus have them come to them, right? You turn out your horse, you take that halter off. Oh my gosh, you got to watch out because they're kicking up their heels and they're galloping away. And then you go to catch them you can't catch them because they don't want to be ridden because it's long, it's fatiguing, it's confusing, it hurts. So instead, I make sure the here is the greatest thing ever. If you are against treats, you can use scratching at the withers. I had another science article on my Patreon about scratching right at the base of the neck and the top of the withers is actually near a ganglion of nerves that will cause them to lower their heart rate. Down at the shoulder, doesn't lower their heart rate. Right at that one spot lowers their heart rate. They'll instantly relax. And when we lower our heart rate, we release endorphins and we relax. So you can use that as positive reinforcement too. But if you're going to be open to using it, this is the moment you use it when they come to you. Because if your horse gets loose out on the property, there's traffic, at least you have that awesome button of them coming to you. And then boom, you have this great recall because you made that button super sweet, super awesome, super fun to come when I'm called and then get a carrot. Yeah, if you start looking at things, keeping it short, simple, and sweet, your horsemanship will change. Your feelings towards your horse and working with your horse will change. Your horse's feelings towards you will change. Their learning abilities will change. Their urge to want to be with you and do the work, and I don't even want to say work, go to school because you're teaching them, will change. And then you'll have more time on your hands. How great is it to ride for 20 minutes, not 2 hours? I have 4 horses. So if camp's not going on, if lessons aren't going on, I have to exercise and stimulate 4 horses. I get a lot more done in 10 minutes when I'm like, okay, oh, we're spooking at this, half circles, I got my point across. Okay, we're done. I get more done doing that than pushing past a boundary. That's just right here because of ego and the programming we've had in the horse industry. So I will post, if I'll try my best to find and post the research that I have that has caused me to come to a lot of these conclusions. And then if you're looking for more, check out my Patreon because I have behind the scenes stuff where I have filmed groundwork and then I have talked through what I do and why. So I'm trying my best to show you with evidence of peer-reviewed journal articles, not just some philosophy coming out of some cowboys, but like why do we use peer-reviewed journal articles? Because we didn't make up some story, we didn't pass down some hunky-dory horsemanship, we didn't use anthropomorphic claims or religion. We asked the horse, and we asked the horse by measuring cortisol levels in their saliva, by putting heart rate monitors on them. It's raw data right there, right from the horse. And that's why I want to use that as my basis and show you this is the data. I'm not making this stuff up. And then we also have experiences. So check that out. Like I said, you guys do you. I'm just trying to help gain a different perspective. And then as a trainer, if you've worked with me and you've seen my horses and you like the results and you go, hey, I want to learn from your school of thought, well, here it is available to you. And, like and share, and others that are looking for alternative, more ethical training that is simple and makes sense, give that a share so they can help too. I'm not trying to, sell myself and my name. I'm trying to just help people and help horses. And I like it when horses enjoy working with their people and people enjoy working with their horses. That's why I'm hashtag horse girl forever. Well, we'll see you guys in a couple weeks. Enjoy.